Hey, hi, yes, so I'm pretty sure you are all aware of iceberg videos by now. They've gotten pretty popular, and I've even found some cool channels from those types of videos, which got me in the mood to make one as well, and eventually I decided to make one on Megaten. Megaten, for those of you who don't know, is the franchise that encapsulates Megami Tensei and Persona. Most people like to think these are two different franchises, but I'm not most people. Either way, people have done iceberg videos on Persona and SMT, but not many people have done icebergs for Megaten as a whole. So I looked over the icebergs made for Persona SMT, you know, the ones that aren't just memes, and compiled them together into this big boy, while adding in a few things that I hadn't seen in the other iceberg images. Special thanks goes out to B-Rez on Tumblr, Underfell on Reddit, Glad Okumura Got Shot on Reddit, Agitated Confidence 9 on Reddit, and the iceberg creators who got deleted off of Reddit, apparently. So I'd say we're about ready to start, but just a word of warning though. Spoilers are all over the place here, and some of the topics discussed can get a bit rough, so viewer discretion is advised. Alrighty then, let's begin our descent. Digital Double Story. Hey, I did a video that touched on this one, but in all seriousness, this is the novel that started it all. Written by Aya Nishitani, the story depicts a high schooler by the name of Akemi Nakajima, a computer genius who, after getting beaten to a pulp, decides to use a demon summoning program he was developing to get revenge and kill those who wronged him. Things quickly go wrong, and it's up to him, the reincarnation of the goddess Izanami, and Cerberus to set things right. This novel had two adaptations, with one being made by Atlus, which soon gave them the drive to create what would eventually become Shin Megami Tensei. Featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series. Dante, the star of the aforementioned series, cameoed in SMT3 Nocturne as a recurring boss and even a recruitable demon. The famous quote came from the box for the European copy of SMT3, known by its subtitle of Lucifer's Call, which featured a sticker proudly proclaiming that yes, the game did feature Dante from the Devil May Cry series. One More God Rejected. This is a meme within the fandom that refers to a lyric from the fierce battle theme in Nocturne. Genital demons. Probably the thing people unfortunately know about this franchise more than the actual games. Yes, there are a lot of demons that have penises, vaginas, or breasts. It's just what Kazuma Kaneko, the original main artist for SMT, likes to do for some reason. Turn it off. This refers to a rather famous urban myth that if you were to reset the original SMT multiple times, there was a chance that you'd get a black screen with red text that says turn it off over and over again. What's neat is that the Japanese version of Persona 4 Arena put in an Easter egg where if you played the game before it was supposed to be released, it points that out to you before telling you to turn it off over and over again. Kaneko Flowerfield. Within the Persona 2 Innocent Sin official guidebook were a plethora of fun pictures that Atlus took for the occasion. Among these was one that showed Kazuma Kaneko frolicking through a field of flowers. It has since been joked about that this is where Kaneko has been spending his time after he left the series in 2009. Matador. Known as the That One boss of Nocturne, Matador is infamous amongst players for being the first real hurdle that practically required you to use buffs and debuffs to defeat him. This is because of his skilled Red Capote, which raises his agility and evasion to max, making him easily able to sweep any unprepared players and sending them to an early grave. Canon protagonist names. Most protagonists in the franchise actually do have names, whether they're from mangas, animes, drama CDs, or just the game telling you they have a name. From your Flynns and Yu Narakamis to your Alephs and Tamakis, they all will get a name, eventually. Yosuke's Cut Romance. Yosuke Hanamura from Persona 4 was actually going to be a romance option, as evidenced by unused text and voice dialogue found in the game's files for both Japan and the US. As you'd expect, with the release of Persona 4 Golden on PC, a mod has been made to make Yosuke finally dateable. Persona 1's original translation. Persona 1 on PlayStation 1 had a pretty bad localization, ignoring the fact that the Snow Queen quest was outright just removed from the US release. This localization is plagued by Americanizing all the names and dialogue and references to pretty much every culture, including Japan. A lot of the characters were made whiter for some reason, and for some reason, one of the characters got blackified. Needless to say, if you're going to ever play Persona 1, play the PSP remake. It fixes everything. SMT 9. This game was an original Xbox exclusive that was made to basically operate as a single-player version for a potential MMORPG. The setting was a virtual world where demons invaded it as glitches in the software that could cause real damage to the body, and if you die in the virtual world, you die in real life. The gameplay opted for a real-time battle system, and the game itself had 9 alignments, which is what the name of the game is in reference to. Due to development issues, as well as the game being a commercial failure, the online version that was planned to come out was cancelled. Despite this, Atlus still aimed to make a PC version of it, which eventually evolved into SMT Imagine, the actual MMORPG co-developed by Cave. Delicious pancakes. A very famous quote that is spoken by Goro Akechi in Persona 5. Due to the silliness of the line as well as its importance, people like to meme about the pancake boy that tried too hard to be seen as relatable and ended up blowing his cover. Phantom Thief Hifumi. Originally, the character Hifumi Togo in Persona 5 was planned to be involved in the game's story, eventually becoming a Phantom Thief herself. Sadly, she was changed to be just a confidant character, and part of her character was given to Makoto to act as the brains and strategist of the group. Toaster. A meme within the fandom that refers to all the robotic characters in the series as toasters. Tamaki Uchida. Tamaki is the protagonist of SMT If, which can be seen as many as the start of the Persona series, and one of the main reasons is Tamaki herself, as she appeared in both Persona 1 and 2, albeit no longer in the main character role. DMC3 Devil Triggers. Part of the reason Dante even got to be in Nocturne is because of a little partnership between Atlus and Capcom. Since Dante was allowed to cameo in a game, Capcom were allowed to have Kazuma Kaneko draw some art for one of their games, which just happened to be DMC3, and the Devil Trigger designs for Dante and Virgil. Aleph is Hijiri theory. This one's a pretty popular fan theory. After progressing through the Amala Labyrinth enough, the Lady in Black tells you about Hijiri, who was punished to observe everything that happens to the world forever, being unable to truly die, with his soul carrying on even after his body gives out. All due to a sin that he committed, and according to fans, the sin that would make the most sense for that kind of a punishment is killing God, or the closest thing to it, YHVH. A task that at the time was only done once in SMT, and that was by Aleph in SMT2. Due to YHVH claiming that he'll be reborn by the Great One when enough people require him again, the theory goes that after YHVH came back, he cursed Aleph to eternal suffering, and Hijiri is just one more reincarnation in his long, long punishment. Raito in Nocturne. After the release of Nocturne, and interesting to note, a couple years after DMC3, Nocturne was re-released in Japan with a version known as the Chronicle Edition. The main difference from this version is that Dante was removed and replaced with Raito Kuzunoha, the protagonist for the SMT games of the same name. This version of the game was then used as the basis for the HD remaster, with Dante being relegated to DLC. Except the Chinese and Korean versions of the game, where their HD remaster was the Dante version only, and only China was given DLC to add Raito to it. This was apparently done to, quote-unquote, avoid the historic sensitivity of Raito Kusunoa, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but I could sort of get what they mean. Pascal the dog. Pascal is the protagonist's pet dog in SMT 1. After demons start running wild, Protag takes Pascal with him, and if he fuses Pascal with a demon, Pascal turns into a powerful Cerberus hybrid that gets lost soon after, but then can be found again later in the game. Apparently, in later versions of SMT, it is mentioned that Pascal was a gift from a Mr. Nakajima, and in the GBA and iOS versions of SMT2, it stated that the Protag from 1 and Pascal helped Madame with expanding Valhalla, and after the protagonist died, Pascal joins Madame to eventually aid Aleph in his quest. Saving Shinjiro in Femc's route. Persona 3 Portable added one of my personal favorite additions, an option for a female protagonist. In it, you can have a social link with the character Shinjiro Aragaki, and by maxing out his social link, you can technically save him from dying and have him be in a coma instead. If you do this on a New Game Plus playthrough, you can even have him show up during the final cutscene, which was always one of the most depressing things to me, because he constantly tries to say how bad of an idea it is to get close to him because he knows he's going to die soon. If not by Ken, then by the suppressants he has to take for his persona. And after he's hospitalized, he ends up in a coma, comes out of it 5 months later, gets to talk with the girl that gave him hope and love, and then she just dies. Like, Jesus, man. Alice is an OC. This is in reference to Alice being an odd amalgamation of Alice in Wonderland and a Scandinavian folktale about a girl who died at a young age, became a spirit, and gained extreme magical power that drove her insane. However, due to how ambiguous her backstory is, even in recent games, it is assumed that most of Alice's characteristics are entirely original to the SMT series. Cerberus's design. In digital Devil Story Megami Tensei, Cerberus is depicted as a one-headed lion with a scaled tail. This design was carried over into almost every single SMT and Persona game as a long-term callback. People stuck in Tartarus. In P3P, Elizabeth or Theo will ask the protagonist to rescue people trapped in Tartarus. You mainly do this for extra rewards and such, but in some instances, non-party social links will find themselves trapped in Tartarus, and if they aren't rescued, they will succumb to apathy syndrome, and the status of the social link will be permanently reversed for the rest of the game. Multiverse theory. Nocturne brings mention to the idea that there are millions upon billions of universes that have their own cycle of death and rebirth. This has given fans the understanding that all the games take place in different universes, with certain games being connected, but most of them being standalone. Albion's penis. This is in reference to the fact that Albion is based on the Cerne Abyss Giant in Dorset, England, a giant hillside painting of a man with a club and... you can see it. Teddy is MC's shadow. This is in reference to the very infamous game theory video that had this as its main point. The theory has been criticized for multiple reasons, one of the biggest ones being that Yu does have a shadow in the anime, and this isn't even a thing about the anime coming after his video. No, the anime was out for around 6 years before his video, so yeah, just kind of felt like the guy didn't really care, threw something together and hoped that too many people wouldn't notice. Nameless, Belladonna, and the Demon Painter. These were the original members that occupied the Velvet Room alongside Igor in Persona 1 and 2. Nameless and Belladonna are actually the duo that performed the theme associated with the Velvet Room. And the Demon Painter in Persona 2 would convert free tarot cards into cards of most other arcana. He's also just a self-insert for Kazuma Kaneko, which is pretty fun. I honestly kinda miss these guys and hope they come back one day. Koromaru is Hachiko. This refers to what Koromaru is seemingly based on. The story of Hachiko is that he would wait for his owner at the train station every evening to walk with him home. But one day, his owner died and didn't come home, leaving Hachiko to show up every night for almost 10 years hoping to see his owner again. Koromaru, in comparison, waited at the shrine for his master to come back, not knowing that he died in an accident 6 months ago. Jun is Tatsuya's lover. One of the few times this has ever happened in this series, but in Persona 2 Innocent Sin, you could be in a romantic relationship with a guy. Jun Kurosu, your final party member. Snow Queen Quest. This was an alternate story route for Persona 1, where the aforementioned Snow Queen aims to bring about the Eternal Night, where all life as we know it is frozen solid. You're tasked with going through 3 towers and collecting shards of a demon mirror to put an end to the Queen's plans. This could be considered the challenge run of this game, as 2 of the 3 towers have set time requirements for you to beat them, or else you'll be locked in the bad ending route, basically asking you to speedrun the game lest you bring about the end of all life as we know it. Persona 3 Beta. Beta footage for Persona 3 is pretty fascinating to look at, as it looks as though it was going to keep the isometric view from Persona 2, and have battles that can happen in the areas that you are walking around in, as well as smooth transitions to battle scenes. Obviously, this was all changed, but it does make you wonder if the games would have kept this style if Persona 3 released like this and it still sold well. Beetlejuice and other movie references. Simply put, some demons and enemies are flat-out references to movies and such. Besides both of Beetlejuice's forms, there's also Chris the Car, a reference to Christine by Stephen King, Audrey, a reference to Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, Franken, a obvious reference to Frankenstein's monster, Nickelwise, a reference to Pennywise from It, Reagan, a reference to Reagan from The Exorcist, and Samantha, a reference to Samara from The Ring. Persona Trinity Soul. This anime was intended to be a sequel to Persona 3 that takes place 10 years after the events of the game, albeit in a parallel universe. It stars 3 brothers that have the ability of Persona and how they end up dealing with a group of rogue Persona users known as Meribito, basically Strega 2.0. The most memorable fact about this anime is that Akihiko Sanada shows up as an important plot character, who somehow lost his persona because he got too old, which then leads into a very dumb and hokey explanation as to why the oldest of the 3 brothers can still use his persona in his late 20s, and Trinity Soul was definitely going for something. I'm just not sure it knew what that something was. Donald and Mickey. In the files of SMT1, there are unused sprites of Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse, wielding a chainsaw and a pair of knives, respectively. They were most likely meant for the Tokyo Destinyland dungeon, but were dummied out due to fear of a lawsuit. They were implemented with different sprites in the PC Engine version, however. Seraph's fans. The demon Seraph is depicted holding 2 fans with writing on them. The writing turns out to be actual Hebrew, but unfortunately it translates to complete gibberish. Loki's mouth. Loki's model in Persona 5 is actually rigged to have his mouth move, showing off his sharp red teeth. But for some reason they didn't have his mouth move with his animations, so his teeth go unseen in-game. Nanashi likes to cross-dress. The protagonist of SMT4 Apocalypse can cross-dress, and I find that pretty neat, especially considering all the other costumes in this game. Demi-Kids. Devil Children, or Demi-Kids, was Atlus's response to Pokemon. Most of them were the same SMT affair, only starring children with more cutesy designs for the demons. There were 6, technically 7 games, 2 animes, 2 mangas, a mobile game, a card game, and an arcade machine. I can only wonder what in God's name this was about. But the only thing we got here in the States was Devil Children Light and Dark, localized to Demi-Kids here in the States. The cool thing about Light and Dark was that it was actually the only time where both versions were so wildly different from each other that they could actually be considered two entirely different games, which I don't think any other Pokemon clone has ever done, so good on you, Atlas. Durara DLC. The artist for the Devil Survivor subseries is Suzuhito Yasuda, the illustrator for Yozakura Quartet, some Digimon games, and of course, Durarara. And I'm guessing as a neat little crossover idea, they decided to have the characters Izaya, Shizuo, and Celti available via Spot Pass. Not only could they take the place of demons in your teens, but you could also apparently do quests for them and get some nice equipment. As you'd expect, this was only in Japan. However, hackers have found a way to edit the save data and unlock this stuff for the English version. It's fully translated and everything, which makes me think if Aniplex wasn't Aniplex, we would have actually gotten this stuff over here, but hey, what can you do? Shin Megami Tensei Tokyo Revelation. This was a manga that was based on SMT, written by the scenario writer for Megami Tensei as well as SMT 1 and 2, Kazunari Suzuki. It tells the story of three teens that are part of the newspaper staff at their school, deciding to look into what's causing mysterious deaths to occur at the school, only to find out that two members of the school's computer club, one of which being possessed, are sacrificing students to summon the demon Osei into the human world, leaving the three teens to scramble together a plan to stop the coming of Osei before it's too late. This manga had 4 volumes and an OVA adaptation, one that seems to be a very fast and loose adaptation. It's so neat to see something like this got made, but you could kind of tell they skimmed over a lot of stuff to squeeze all this in just under an hour. Scrapped Nyarlathotep design. Simply put, the villain of Persona 2's duology, Nyarlathotep, has a design that goes unused. This was revealed in Kazuma Kaneko Graphics Pandemonium Volume 3, where it was shown in a human-like form, donned in a snazzy suit and holding a cane. This potentially could have been a form it used before transforming into its true form that a lot of us are familiar with. But considering how many times it took the form of someone else, maybe they felt it unnecessary to use this design. Steven can stand up. In SMT4 Apocalypse, there's a DLC quest known as Messiahs in the Demon Realm. It's probably the biggest bit of fan service the main series has ever gotten, where the protagonists from SMT 1 through 4 all meet up in a sequence reminiscent of the first SMT. This DLC crescendos with a boss fight against the enigmatic entity, Steven. But after the first phase is done, Steven does something he hasn't showcased as possible in the 20+ years of this character's existence, and rises out of his chair to start the second phase. Test size. Within the files of Persona 5 exists this model labeled as such. It depicts a girl that by the name implies was used as a guide to determine the height for characters and possible NPCs. Due to her unique design, people have theorized everything from a scrapped party member to a female protagonist. While we don't really know for certain, it is important to note that the design for this model seems to be based on a piece of concept art for Persona 5 in its early phases. Queen Frost. While King Frost has showed up in a plethora of games, many would think that there isn't actually a Queen Frost, but surprise surprise, there is. Only shown in the Devil Children anime as well as the card game, there is an official Queen Frost drawn by Kaneko that has just never been in a game of any sort. And I kinda wish she gets included at some point because she's pretty cool looking. Megaten TCG. From 1997 to 2004, there was a trading card game based on the Megami Tensei series called Digital Devil's Story. Much like a lot of things, it of course was never brought to the States, but there apparently has been a recent fan effort to archive and translate the cards. Maya and Lisa models in Nocturne. During the development of Nocturne, the team decided to make 3D models of previous SMT and Persona 2 characters to test animations and such. These included Louise Cypher, Sid Davies, Lisa Silverman, and Maya Amano. The last two still have model data that can be found on the disc for the final release, and people found out by fooling around in the debug menu that beta versions of cutscenes that use Lisa in place of Yuko and Chiaki exist in the game's code. Stolen Persona 4 fan art. Within the files of P5 lies a collage of official Persona 4 promo art, but alongside that art was this piece of fan art that was either added by mistake or was meant to be taken out later. Either way, someone's fan art is forever immortalized in P5 unbeknownst to them. Reverse social links, doubt, and broken. For those of you who are unaware, in Persona 3, if you neglected social links, picked the wrong responses in a conversation, or planned to meet someone after you made plans with someone else, you could reverse or even break social links. Reversing a social link halts the progress of it, and requires you to make up with the person in question in order to set the social link right. Broken social links not only stops all progression, but it prevents you from fusing personas from that arcana. Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 cut back on this mechanic greatly, making it so a specific few could end up reversing or breaking, and you no longer need to worry about not spending enough time with somebody. The interesting thing, though, is that this mechanic was apparently going to make a comeback in Persona 5. Script data as well as graphics for the Arcana cards exist in the game's code unused. It seems like it even would have let you fuse personas with arcanas that were broken, but you would have lost the benefit that Confidant gave you. Fiend Theme is a remix. Most people know the Fiend's theme from SMT 3. But not only did that theme actually originate in SMT If on the PS1, it's also a remix of the track Recovering Remembrance from SMT 2. Frey Kugel equals Riot Gun. In SMT3, Demi-Fiend gets a skill known as Frey Kugel. This name was apparently a localization mistake, as every game since 3 that has used the skill, which in Japanese is Shiko no Madan, or roughly Supreme Magic Bullet, has had the name localized to Riot Gun. Fun fact, Demi-Fiend in SMT4 Apocalypse retains Frey Kugel as a unique skill on its own. However, both skills use the same Japanese name in that game, which is kinda funny. Dios no mata mucho. Rag's shop in Nocturne has a theme where vocals can be faintly heard in the background. These vocals are actually sampled from the 1999 Spanish film La Lengua de las Mariposas, one of the samples being
Dios no mata mucho,
or God does not kill much. Editor's note, it's actually not mucho, it's muncho, so the woman is saying God does not kill, muncho, since that's the name of the kid. I don't blame the people that misunderstood this in their icebergs, because those words sound very close. But, yeah, sorry for messing up the flow, just noticed that during editing. Nocturne's lyrics are sung by Plain Talk. This threw me for a loop when I found out about it. It turns out that the lyrics for Nocturne are being sung by a Mac OS X text-to-speech program known as Plain Talk, specifically the Albert voice preset.
I have a frog in my throat. No, I'm the real frog.
Isn't that crazy? This whole time I thought it was just some person's voice put through a filter, but it was really just a text-to-speech program this whole time. Nanako's shadow. This is a theory on why Nanako doesn't also have to confront her shadow while in the Shadow Realm. The in-game reason is that she was simply too young to have a shadow, but this theory claims that Nanako having to go through the death of her mother and living with a father who's almost never around is more than enough needed to have her have a shadow even at her young age. So why doesn't she get one? Well, this theory claims that she already has one, and that her shadow is actually Teddy. The reasons given are that Nanako's feelings of loneliness caused Teddy to come into existence, and are also why Teddy has a desire for friends and acceptance. Another reason being that Teddy grows closer towards Yu Narukami quickly, and Yu is also the first person Nanako is able to grow close to. And also, when Nanako dies, Teddy disappears to a world of fog to have his existential crisis, instead of staying in Inaba with everyone else. Now, I would just like to stress I am not saying that any of these theories are true or anything, I'm just pointing them out. Baby Goldfish. For some reason, there was a baby goldfish demon in SMT Imagine. In fact, there were 3 that were white, black, and red, and you could have fused them into a gold baby goldfish. I couldn't find any pictures of the gold one anywhere, as the site I found that had the white and black ones no longer had the gold or the red one. The only picture I found of the red one was this very, very small one that was on someone's Tumblr. Thank you, by the way, MD Pikachu. You've done weirdos like me a service. I may sound baffled, and it's because I am. The thought of using a goldfish as a demon is ridiculous. Kinda makes me wish I knew this game existed before the servers died. SMT Tabletop. SMT TRPG was a series of tabletop RPG books that were released between 1993 to 2010. There were 17 of these books, and once again, they were, of course, only in Japan. There were even around 11 novel adaptations, which I guess you could say were the canon route of the campaigns. Quantum Devil Saga. Digital Devil Saga was a duology of games on the PS2, whose story was originally planned to be written by the novelist Yu Godai. However, during the project, Yu Godai had to leave due to health issues, and the story was finished by Tadashi Satomi, the scenario writer for Persona 1 and 2. Years later, Yu Godai aimed to finish her original vision for Digital Devil Saga, and thus wrote Quantum Devil Saga, a 5-part novel series that expands on the details from the game and diverges from them into its own thing. We actually got 2 out of the 5 books here in the States, but it seems like there's no plans to localize the rest of them, which kinda sucks, but hey, at least Yu Godai managed to come back and finish what she started. Persona and SMT mobile games. There are a lot of Megaten mobile games. As of now, there are around 30 of these. 30! And most of them were made back before mobile games could be considered games. Another chunk of them were card games. I really don't know what it was with SMT and card games, but there were a lot of them. Besides all that though, SMT 1, 2, and IF did get ported to iOS, and 1 even got localized over here. And while I don't play it, I heard people enjoy DX2, which, by the way, I found out had a Berserk and Ghost of the Shell collab, as well as Sonic the Goddang Hedgehog. Mobile games need to stop sometimes. Masakado's Prayers. During the development of SMT1, a staff member's house was robbed. Afterwards, the dev team went to Masakado's shrine to pray, and apparently this has become a tradition before the development of each game in the mainline SMT series. Groove On Fight Demons. Groove On Fight was a fighting game developed by Atlus in 1997, and was actually the 4th game in a series known as Goketsuji Ichizoku, or Power Instinct as it was localized in the West. One of the characters in Groove On Fight is Bristol D, the final boss of the game. He's a demon summoner who uses various SMT demons in his special moves. Some of the notable ones are Beelzebub, Florius, Incubus and Succubus, depending on the opponent's gender, Nekomata, Pixies, and Ukabak. Atlas loves JJCAT. Japanese Jewish Common Ancestor Theory, or JJCAT, is a theory that one of the 12 tribes of Israel landed in Japan and the Japanese imperial line are the lineage of God's chosen. This theory has been cited by Kazuma Kaneko and Yusuke Miyata, the scenario writer for SMT4 Apocalypse, as influences on the series. Parofella. There's a Persona 4 porn parody. That's all I have to say about it. Next skip. In Persona 3 FES, it's possible to skip the final boss entirely through the use of Tanaka. Since he's there every night until you start his social link, you can time it to where the day you started is January 31st. Since the game is not prepared for you to have been able to progress the day without beating Nyx, it just skips ahead to the true ending. Meaning that seasoned context tried ignoring it and hoping it goes away, and it worked. Kabu-chan begins debugging. Bug is a rare demon that can be found in the original Megami Tensei. If you pressed and held AB plus left and down on a second controller, then started auto battle with the first controller, the message Kabu-chan begins debugging would pop up. Sojima wanted cute Nazis in Persona 2. During an interview, the Persona artist Shigenori Sojima made an offhanded comment about wanting the last battalion in Persona 2 Innocent Sin to be comprised entirely of cute girls, which... that'd be a slightly different game if that were to happen, wouldn't it? The second Demi-Fiend. In the drama CD for Nocturne, there is a new character called Ryogo that Lucifer turns into a Demi-Fiend, in an attempt to mask the threat of the actual Demi-Fiend while he's traversing through the Vortex world. Ren is Vincent and Catherine's son from the Good Ending theory. Just as it says, people like to theorize that the protagonist for Persona 5 is actually the son of Vincent and Catherine from Catherine. I think half of the reason that people like this theory is because Persona 5 used Catherine as a basis for a lot of the things, and, well, Ren and Vincent do look a bit similar, though I think that's more a homage than anything. Either way, it's a cute theory. Devil Summoner TV series. Yeah, you heard that right. In 1997, there was a live-action TV show made for the original Devil Summoner. The first season consisted of 13 episodes that retold the story of the Saturn game, while its second season was another 13 episodes that told an original story. Unfortunately, it seems like nobody's tried to translate the series as of now, and no DVD releases means that we're stuck with VHS rips, which do not do this show justice. Though it is fun to point out that Kaneko and Okoda, one of the founders of Atlas and co-creator of SMT, cameo in the first episode during the bar scene. Strange Journey Redex's extra scenario was outsourced. According to Strange Journey Redux' credits, the new story elements were written by a Japanese company known as Mimi, who've also apparently written for Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. And let me just say, this company is impossible to find because Google thinks that I'm just talking about memes or Me, that music video from a couple years ago. I can't fact check this one, so if it ends up being wrong, I'm sorry, I did my best. Giten Megami Tensei Tokyo Moko Shiroku. Pooh boy, this is a big one. So Giten Megami Tensei was a PC 98 game made in 1997, and it's probably both the most obscure and the most infamous game in Megami Tensei's library. Due to its platform, the game was able to get away with a lot of sex scenes and intense violence. The most well-known instance of the latter being early in the game, where after trying to defend the shelter that humanity lives in from a demon invasion, The heroine of the game, Yuka Tachibana, is captured by the demon Murmur, who calls in 7 other demons to partake in a feast. Yuka is then dismembered and eaten by the demons, with the only thing left behind being her head, which will be offered as a sacrifice to their leader, Baal. This is done because Yuka is actually the reincarnation of Ishtar, so the demons knew that consuming her would give them power. It's probably the most graphic scene in the entire franchise, and surprising to no one, this game has never been re-released or ported in any way or fashion besides a Windows port in 1999. As a final note to go out on that isn't morbid beyond belief, this was apparently the first game that introduced the abilities to have your demons level up, so, you know, that's neat. Krishna is responsible for Japanese Christian persecution. In the art book for SMT4 Apocalypse, Krishna's entry has an unused backstory included, where he is turned into the deity Kukuten or Kuroten, and is revealed to be behind both Sakoku, Japan's 214-year period of isolation, and the 26 Martyrs of Japan incident, in which a group of Catholics were executed by crucifixion in 1597. This is a weird thing to give Krishna of all deities, but they almost did. Sutoku Tenno. In 2004, a mobile port of Megami Tensei 1 was put on flip phones, and this port had with it a single extra demon that to this day I don't believe has been in any other game, and that is Sutoku Tenno. Which is kind of interesting that is the case, as Sutoku Tenno is said to be one of the 3 most well-known yokai in Japan, so the fact that he's only been in one game, especially one such as a mobile phone port of the first game in the franchise, is kind of baffling. Historical figures considered for SMT1. Within the 25th anniversary book for the series, titled Megaten Maniacs, it makes mention of multiple historical figures that were in design documents for the older games. These included the likes of Nobunaga, Genghis Khan, Caesar, Napoleon, Alexander the Great, and yes, even Hitler. 9 and Devil Survivor scenarios were conceptualized during Nocturne. Another thing found in the Megaten Maniacs book was that during Nocturne's development, a lot of concepts were thrown around. Some of these included a story about Cain and Abel, which became the basis for Devil Survivor, and a story with heavy Gnostic themes, which became the basis for SMT9. Amaterasu and a Gnat scenario. This was the plot of SMT3 version A, which was the tech demo for Nocturne. In it, the goddess Anat awakens Demi-Fiend and tasks him with killing Amaterasu, which after making his way to her location, he runs into Take Mikazuchi, who informs Demi-Fiend that Amaterasu was cursed by Anat and that he shouldn't trust her, instead finding a way to break the curse by finding some sort of treasure. You are then given a choice to either continue your murder quest and find where Amaterasu escaped to by negotiating with demons and eventually fighting her, or deciding to aid Taka Mikazuchi, where you find the treasure and use it to break the curse on Amaterasu. This demo is considered lost as there is no playable version of it that has been found yet, with the only footage of existence being found in the Making of Nocturne documentary. Shin Megami Tensei VX. Some insane human beings remade SMT1 in RPG Maker, and it's a pretty faithful recreation, and even has some extra features. These include the inclusion of a law heroine and a chaos heroine, that you can apparently choose to go more faithful and exclude those 2 characters, a route where you can persuade the law hero and chaos hero, up to 8 endings with 6 main routes, new dungeons, and story development that were added in re-releases of the game but not in the original, among other things. This has been another thing that hasn't been translated to my knowledge, but man, would I honestly want to see it, just to honor those wacky Japanese fans that spent who knows how much time to do all this. Alright, that's everything. Let me start off by saying, while I love watching Iceberg videos, actually making one of this caliber was a lot of work. I think this is the most research I've had to do for any video thus far, which makes sense since it's not just one topic, and having to fact check everything or get more info takes a while, but in the end it was really fun. There were quite a lot of things I never knew before tackling this, and that, more than anything, makes me glad to have done this, because I got to learn more and further appreciate a lot more about this franchise and all the weird stuff that embodies it. If I were to make like a mini top 3 of my favorite things to have learned from this, it would have been the goldfish, the groove on fight thing, and this last one is a cop-out, but just all the Nocturne stuff that got talked about. The tech demo, the fact that the songs are done by a text-to-speech program, all that, because that stuff is interesting to learn about, and it kind of makes you appreciate how amazing Nocturne ended up, despite its long, complicated journey. Of course, there's going to be the part of us that wonders how things would have been if all these beta concepts and unused areas or cutscenes were used instead of the game we got, but in the end, we got something truly special, and speaking of, I hope everybody that gave Nocturne HD a shot this year enjoyed it, and I also hope some of you guys are looking forward to SMT 5, because I know I am. It looks really neato. Either way, I do believe that's everything. Thank you to everyone who sat through this monster of a video. I hope all of you enjoyed it at least a little bit. Just be safe out there. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.